I dedicate this little book to my wife. Without her faithful help, it would not have been complete until God knows when. Driving difficult horses with great skill in the tandem and at the coach pleased her better than typing up my experiences. But it had to be done so that all my study was not in vain. To explain the rules of carriage driving, the knowledge of different types of harnesses and their use in order to promote the art of driving is the goal of this book. For there is an art of driving. However, this is new to many readers, especially riders. If some of them develop a taste for it because of the trust they have placed in me, that would make me happy. Some will accuse me of only including that which I think is good. To that I must respond that I do not deal with all imaginable possibilities, but that I can only recommend that which I have really thought through, and which I have discovered and thoroughly tested in 45 years of diligent, comparative, and practical study. Finally, proper thanks are due to my readers for many acts of support and suggestions. Benno von Achenbach, 1922. The goal of these exercises is to prepare the young horse in a proper fashion, as gently and safely as possible, as a cart and riding horse, and to make the horse friendly and obedient. With this exercise, you save manpower, time, injuries, and harness, because you are striving for obedience in a simple way without punishment. One can practice just as easily on an open, sandy, or grassy area as in an enclosed ring. For work with a double lounge, use a thick snaffle bit placed rather high than low. In order to have power over the untrained horse, which is absolutely necessary, and to make the position of the reins and their effect as similar as possible to the position and direction of the rider's reins and the driver's straps, I put the lounge lines through the hame turrets for lever. From here, the lounge lines go sharply downwards through two low-placed large rings on the saddle, so the outer lounge is never able to slip over the horse's back. One must buckle the pad point straps as long as possible. You then unfold the double lounge line and first, standing by the horse as if to mount, place the right part as the outer rein with the right hand gradually over the croup and tail down to the buttocks. With the left hand, you prevent yourself from getting kicked by holding the left rein bent forward with a loose but secure grip. If the horse calmly tolerates the lounge line in the back, you should then guide him walking backwards in large arcs around to the left and keep an eye on the back legs. A very few horses kick, but then if a horse does kick, after a few minutes they usually walk forward very calmly, lift their tails and get used very quickly to the outer lounge line. If the horse tries to break free and struggle, you should allow the double lounge line to glide through in such a way as to allow the horse to come around to the left, into the circle, and to buck until he has it out of his system. This is soon over and releases all the horse's tensions. By the way, you should never work without thick, broad gloves. One can stand still or almost still as long as one works in a circle, but one must immediately begin to walk along as soon as one comes behind the horse and begins the change of hands. If one does not actively adjust to the horse's speed at this moment, the horse receives a savage pull on his mouth. If the horse's resistance has been broken in the first half hour so that the horse walks freely with long reins, one can achieve briskness and collection by means of lighter or more powerful swinging of the lounge and calling out, without the least disturbance in the mouth. Every horse immediately recognizes the futility of attempts to stand still or to retreat inward or outward. The whip is in the first hours completely unnecessary. I would even advise against its use. One of the best exercises for driver and horse is the change of hands, performed in a flowing and beautiful manner. Assume that you are on the horse's left side, which I always recommend in the beginning, and that you wish to change. You must first make the circle smaller while walking and shorten the double lunge gradually in such a way that one loop in the left hand hangs almost to the ground. Then you raise both hands so as not to step in and lead the horse, especially in a small lounging area nearer to the wall. The right hand grasps towards the corner some 30 inches forward on the right lounge line, and while the horse comes through the whole track onto the line of exchange for the figure 8, the right hand allows the left hand to glide through, uninterrupted, until the horse has properly switched to the right hand in front of you. At the end of each lesson or hour, the horse must be made accustomed to the calm, stroking application of the whip at the walking pace. If you have achieved the horse's complete trust, you can practice with whip cracks, calls, sirens, drums, rattles, or sleigh bells. The coachman takes the collar with both hands so that the rest of it is pointed upwards and places himself in front of the horse. He guides the collar carefully over the horse's head, turns it around at the thinnest point of the neck in the same direction as the mane, and lets it slide down to the shoulders. If the horse's head is very wide or sensitive, one should unbuckle the hames and place the collar spread over one knee. The collar must be sufficiently large that one can easily place a flat hand between the lower end and the windpipe. It must rest in the correct position against the shoulder and must therefore be thick and well padded. Strong, correctly made padding prevents the hame tugs from chafing. Every collar strap must have one secure loop and one loose loop and 6 to 8 holes. It must also be attached at the inner collar hanger and then pass through the outer one once and no more. It must, however, be fastened in such a way that it can be put on from outside and so that the point of the collar strap is not in the way of the lead rein in a 4-horse equipage. Then you place the saddle pad over the horse's back. Take the tail with your left hand and place it through the crupper, taking care that no hairs get caught in it. The breeching should be buckled in such a way that you can easily place both hands through at the haunches, and so that it lies one hand width beneath the hip bone. In other words, so high that it does not impede the free movement of the back legs. After the harness has been put on and secured, the coachman takes the bridle with his left hand, places his right arm under the horse's neck, takes the bridle at the headpiece and lifts it up to the ears, while the left hand grabs the bit at the mouthpiece, places it into the horse's mouth, which can be opened by pressing your left thumb against the diastema. The right hand pulls the headpiece over the right ear, and the left ear is carefully put through with the left hand. At this point, the bridle bit is placed in the mouth, the curb chain is hooked on, and the throat latch and nose latches are fastened. The correct position of the bridle demands that the horse's eyes stand somewhat higher than the middle of the blinders. Otherwise, the upper edge of the blinders will chafe against the temporal bone because the weight of the bridle lies mainly here and not on the entire cheek. First, the coupling reins are buckled. The coupling rein must be buckled at the mouth in such a way that it disturbs the horse as little as possible. If a horse has the habit of tossing its head, its rein absolutely must lie over the other one. If a horse is sensitive in the mouth and therefore holds its head higher than the other horse, then the rein of the lower horse must lie below, in any case when one is driving with curb bit. The head of the sensitive horse will not let itself be pulled down when the other rein is buckled over. Then the pole straps are attached long and the traces are fastened to the roller bolts. In an English-style harness, the outside ones go first. The rein is attached at the pad underneath the pad point strap of the off horse, but only under that of the horse to the left of the pole. In an English-style harness, leader traces and swingle trees must have the screw heads upwards. One can see easily in this way if the screw has come loose. When you are attaching the traces, take care that the inner traces are constantly coming back inwards because they are shorter and because they become unattractive due to unavoidable rubbing against the traces of the neighboring horses. With practical harnesses, the points of the interior traces are made blunt for easy recognition. The exterior wheel trace should be 1 inch longer than the interior one. The exterior lead trace should be 2 inches longer than the interior one. In taking up the reins on the right side, the right hand pulls them at the end buckle out of the pad point strap or the back bearing strap and hangs them over the little finger. You place yourself between the saddle pad and the hip, 30 inches to the side of the off horse, and remain standing still there until you have completely measured out the reins. Now that you're onto the box, the left hand sticks its index and middle finger close in front of the right one into the reins. The coachman hangs the end of the rein on the left little finger so that the coachman's assistant does not step into it and get stuck when he is jumping down. Both ladies and gentlemen allow the reins to hang down at the left upper thigh. The driver's posture on the box should be both natural and straight. He should not lock the elbows, much less hold them tightly against his upper arms. Elbow and shoulder joints must be much more mobile than in riding, except for jumping. The right hand should be placed in front of the left hand in the center of the body. As a general rule, one should drive with both hands, never with divided reins. The index and middle finger of the left hand divide the reins in such a way that the left one lies on top. The right hand grasps the right rein open-handed, that is, with the 3 lower fingers. The little finger must grasp far over the rein. It lies with the hair side upwards, while the fingertips are placed from below against the skin side. If the smooth side is placed downwards at the little finger, the hand stands covered. The thumb and index finger, which are not closed, are not held forwards, but rather leaning toward each other. The reins therefore lie at the base of the fingers, close by the middle hand bones. Special attention must be paid to the right hand, which stands vertically, about 2 inches at the inside, right next to the left one. You must practice taking the right hand from the rein without thereby causing an inadvertent change in direction or speed. The reins should never slip through the hand. If it's necessary to shorten or lengthen one or both reins, the right hand should take care of this from the front. For shortening the reins, the driver grasps with his right hand close in front of the left one, the right index finger over the left rein, the open right hand, as always, over the right rein. The left hand lets go of the reins completely and grasps close in front of the right hand. This hand movement must be done without disturbing the horses in the least. Lengthening takes place by pulling the reins out of the left hand without changing their position in relation to each other. The whip remains in the right hand. For moving off, you must always release the brake first. Then you should use vocal commands to move off. Only when necessary should you use the whip. As soon as the horses are in motion, you should strive for equal division of labor between the horses, without which no proper driving can take place. A slowing of the pace always precedes the turns, especially right turns. In order to turn well and securely on smooth asphalt in a flowing manner and without running into the curb, you must have completed reining in before the turn, so that you do not have to pull on the inner rein in order to turn. In order to execute the right turn, the right hand grasps 2 inches forwards on the right rein, and then both hands turn forwards downwards, each according to necessity. If the aid for turning was given too early or too strongly, or if the horses are tossing themselves about because they are shying away to the left, the right hand remains in all circumstances on the right rein and pulls it out. In such moments, you should drive completely with both hands. All turns to the left should be made as large as possible. The right hand should never grasp the left rein in left turns. The turn is made possible by turning the surface of both hands upwards. If this aid does not suffice, the right hand must then pull the right rein as necessary out of the left hand and must guide the turn completely by relaxing this rein. For climbing aboard, the right hand takes the reins up in order to give them over finally to the left hand once in the box. Driving with the four in hand becomes much easier when the left hand has learned to hold the reins tight with the 3 lower fingers under all circumstances, and especially in critical moments. The best preliminary exercise for this is to keep the thumb and index finger open constantly while driving a carriage and pair. When driving with a 4 in hand, the thumb and index finger must perform a serious task and must have learned to function completely separately from the 3 remaining fingers of the left hand. When going in a straight line, the right hand has to provide much more support than with 2 horses. It must regulate the reins and keep the left hand fit for the turns. To shorten all 4 reins at once, the thumb and index finger of the right hand should hold the whip, while the 3 lower fingers of the right hand grasp all 4 reins so that the left hand can glide forward on them. You should only use this action if you are shortening the reins by a large amount suddenly. If you are shortening the reins by a small amount, the right hand should glide forward on the reins in front of the left hand by about 2 inches, no more. Here, the right hand closes itself. The left hand glides somewhat open down to it. If the reins are still too long, repeat this action as necessary. While driving, if it becomes necessary to shorten or lengthen the left lead rein or wheel rein, then the right hand should do this in front of the left hand. It pulls forward or pushes back. You should practice the lengthening or shortening of the left lead rein and right wheel rein without taking the right hand out of the working gear position. In shortening the lead reins, the right hand grasps the lead reins 2 to 4 inches in front of the left hand in such a way that the right index finger grasps over the left rein, the full right hand over the right rein. Moreover, I recommend that you bring the left index finger under the right lead rein so that both lead reins now lie touching each other on top. Then you can shorten very easily by pushing the right hand forward. When you give way to the left or to the right, it is important that mainly the carriage goes off to the side. The horses do not allow themselves to be jostled so easily. But the same cannot be said of the splinter bar, wheel hubs, mud guards, and lanterns. Therefore, the wheel horses in particular must be led sideways because only they can guide the carriage sharply to one side. If you give way with all 4 horses at the same time, you will be already with A at the curb. If you steer the leaders forward to the right first, you will make unnecessary actions and will only reach with step B, the point where you could have been already with just one action. Before you grasp both right reins with your right hand as if you were holding one, it is to your advantage first to hang the right wheel rein on the tip of the index finger, because that way you can stay close to the right even while braking. In order to drive forward close to the left or to pass other vehicles, you should lengthen the right wheel rein by about an inch without taking the right hand from the reins. Then the right hand grasps both right reins, the middle finger in between, and places the left hand underneath the right. If you want to keep the right hand free, then you hang the left reins over the base of the thumb and go with the left hand over a little bit to the left, so that the action does not become too strong. In order to make a sudden halt, you first pull the brake firmly. Then the right hand grasps 12 inches forward on all the reins. The left hand then makes room upwards for the strong pull of the right hand. In the moment when the horses have come with their front legs up even with the corner of the turn, the right hand places a loop with the right lead rein of about 8 inches under the left index finger. For this action, the left hand then goes steadily forward to the right into the turn, whereby the right wheel rein becomes loose so that the inner wheel horse can bring the carriage through easily. You may only urge or whip the horse when it throws itself into the turn with the right wheel rein hanging down. If the placement of the left hand in front of the right hip does not suffice to avoid collision, then the right hand with the right middle finger between both left reins grasps these 6 inches in front of the left hand and holds in this way. The left hand markedly relaxes the rein by going under the right hand. Let go of the loop only when the lead horses are parallel to the curb of the new street. A sharp turn to the right is only driven differently from a right angle insofar as you must make 2 loops instead of 1. and in this it is similar to turning around in a street. On asphalt or cobbles you may make 2 loops only at the walk, because the right hand must hold both outer lines. The second loop is made by grasping with the right hand closed in front of the left and pulling up enough of the rein that the lead horses come over correctly to the right. In this way, we get a large loop from 2 parts. The left hand goes only into the turn, that is, in front of the right hip, until the second loop is made. Then it is usually necessary to exercise pressure on both right reins with a full right hand. This is with the right hand half open, so that the right front loop can glide through while you manipulate the right wheel rein from below with the fingertips. The left turn must be driven with the fore-in hand in an especially large arc. In order to provide for a large arc from the start and not to distance the left hand unnecessarily from the right by holding into the turn, you hang the right wheel rein on the tip of the outstretched left index finger. This action is to effect the resistance wheel rein. This provides resistance to the tendency of the wheel horses to throw into the turn. Through this action, you should disturb the wheel horses as little as possible, while the left index finger pushes itself underneath the right wheel rein, which has been pulled somewhat forward. Then, when the lead horses come even with the corner of the left corner house, not the curb, the right hand glides forward about 6 inches on the left lead rein and lays the loop, taking the center of pressure for a few seconds smoothly under the left thumb. If you want to lead the turn to the finish with one hand, you should go with the rein hand more into the turn. Otherwise, the right hand holds both right reins as if they were one rein with a full hand. At the same time, the left hand relaxes without letting go of the loop. The driver who is lucky enough to drive with a fore in hand has the responsibility of practicing diligently with the whip. If you want to do this, you can find the time for it. He who cannot handle the whip as is required, that is, catch it up correctly, hit without making a noise, hit securely, and take it up again correctly, must practice very diligently. Otherwise, the whip will hinder him his whole life. The catching up of the thong of the whip is hard to describe, but even harder to learn well enough so that you can do it successfully every time while driving without disturbing the passengers and the horses. Diligence and great patience will help you to overcome this difficulty while driving tandems and in teams of 4. You should do the beginning of the exercises without a whip. With chalk, draw a 26-inch large S on the wall and imagine that you have covered the tip of your right thumb with chalk and that you want to trace this S from bottom to top. Start without a whip with the thumb at A to the left. Then go very slowly a little downwards to the right, then upwards to B. From here the thumb climbs in this direction towards C, while the wrist stays back. From B on, the thumb speeds up its movement and ends shortly before C. There it remains for several seconds so that later the thong, which is flying towards the shaft, can be wound around it. The preliminary exercises must have been so thorough that you do not allow yourself to be tempted to strike after the thong with a shaft. The thong must fly towards the shaft and wrap itself around it. With the whip in the hand, the order of business is now as follows. The middle of the thong, M, will fly upwards to the right due to the slow movement of the hand, as if you were trying to hit someone standing across from you under the nose with M. Because the middle of the thong is now flying upwards to the right, supported in its effort by the acceleration starting at B, it will then fly towards the shaft when it suddenly stops at C and will wind itself around it here. This is what is meant by catching it up. Most German carriage drivers cannot handle a four-in-hand whip at all, but if he practices hard for 2 weeks, an adequately adept person can wield the whip for the rest of his life. In order to hit a lead horse, the whip must first be unwound silently to the right. Look at the whip as little as possible as to not draw your attention away from the road. If the right hand has let go of the tip, the thong drags the ground next to the carriage on the right side. In whipping the right lead horse, you lead the whip in a large circle in the opposite direction from that of the wheels and throw the thong close to the ground forwards, as if you wanted to hit an object standing about a yard ahead and to the right of the front legs of the right lead horse. In whipping the left lead horse, the whip is unwound on the right side as described. Then you grasp the shaft by striking on your right thigh at the end and throw the thong carefully in a large arc over the horses on the left side. There you make in the same manner a circle in the opposite direction from that of the wheels and try to hit the corresponding point to the left next to the lead horse. It is often argued as to which is more difficult to drive, a tandem or a four-in-hand. With a tandem there is always one danger, the reins which lie very close together in front of the hand. You must always hold on with both outer reins after laying the loops as with four horses. They are here much more difficult to grasp than with a four-in-hand, especially for the beginner who is still guiding without understanding, that is, too loosely, and who does not hold the hand into the turn, so that the reins of the wheel horse hang down. You should use the tandem bars as long as you are not just driving straight ahead over countryside. It has the disadvantage of hanging more or less at the wheel horse's neck and slipping down to his knee. I prefer the breast collar harness to the collar, first because there is very little to pull, second because the traces lie lower, and third because the breast collar gives way to the outer trace a little in the turn. The first action consists in gliding the right hand forwards by 4 inches and holding both right reins tight. In this, the right hand lets go of both left reins in order to pull up the left lead rein for the left turn with the thumb and index finger. This loop is made according to need from several small actions, and the left thumb should not grasp in front of the right one. In order to drive around to the right in an arc, the lead horse should have really loose traces, in other words, be shortened. The right hand glides forward on all 4 reins about 6 inches and lets go of the left lead rein, but holds the left wheel rein tightly with the middle finger especially alert. With a tandem, a very exact taking up of the reins is even more important than with a four-in-hand. On the driver's seat, you must immediately become a master of the situation, not start to search around and muddle through. This would only excite young horses. The taking up of the reins is exactly as with a four-in-hand. For harnessing, you fasten the reins best as given for the four-in-hand, not twisted. If an unreliable lead horse must be led, this may happen only at the cheek piece, never at the rein, because it would only be pulled out of the driver's hand and suddenly let loose. The rein would be much too long so that the lead horse would turn around. For driving the lead horse, I recommend a soft snaffle bit, especially if the driver is still unsure. To drive three horses as a unicorn, you use the middle swingle tree of English form and a tandem rein. The Roger rings are buckled at the inner sides of the wheel horses. Because the front traces to reach the necessary length must be buckled into the first hole, which looks ugly and distorts the traces, one lengthens the harnessing by means of a strong ring and a strap, with the strength of a pole strap. Three horses hitched one after the other is called a random. The reins are led as with a team of six. It is not a feat of art to drive with a team of six if you can drive properly with a four-in-hand. Whoever thought seriously about this situation will, like me, have come upon the idea of holding the six reins as shown. I brooded over this half a night until the egg was laid, but it was worth the time. 3 years ago, the riding masters Buchheister and Pape in Hanover took the six reins into hand according to my suggestion, and they could immediately drive all corners with six horses just as easily as with four. Of course, it only works if you, without muddling, have the reins properly arranged in the left hand, assisted by the right hand. Everything goes just as with four horses. The loops are very simply for the right corner. First a loop of 6 inches with the appropriate lead rein, then grasp the lead and middle reins as if they were one and make a loop that way. The lead loop becomes in this way twice as large as the middle one. The long team now can move around perfectly. The whip must just be ready to stroke the inner wheel horse as soon as the horses should step somewhat too quickly into the turn. But this is with 6 horses less to be feared than with 4 horses. This figure shows the pole, a pole strap 40 inches long, buckled 16 inches, or pole chain 32 inches. Finally, a coupling strap out of 2 smaller rubber tubes with buckle straps, which from one inner trace buckle to another should help to carry the middle pole. The rein for a team of 6 must be about 33 feet long. The handpiece width should be a scant 1/16 of an inch wider than the others.